Welcome everyone to our tasting this evening of Delamotte's 260th anniversary, which, as Colette said, is quite an achievement. And we just had to mark it. We'd hoped to do so in person and to hold a tasting, or a few tastings actually, in London and around the UK, but obviously rather momentous circumstances of this year have contrived against that. So I'm very pleased to welcome Didier Depond, President of Champagne Salon and Delamotte, here with us tonight, as Colette said earlier, and his colleague Christian Romaldi, and between them they'll be guiding you through this evening's tasting, and we will be tasting through the core range of Delamotte. But firstly, I really hope that you all have the time just to pour a glass of Delamotte Brut, which is the first wine we'll be tasting tonight of the three, because this is very important that you have your glass full throughout, or several glasses full, I hope you have. So what does this hold? We'll be hearing a little bit more about the history of Delamotte. We'll be hearing about its approach to quality from the outset and still today, and also the crucial role of Chardonnay as a grape in all the Delamotte wines. And this is similar to Delamotte's sister house, Champagne Salon, who many of you will also have heard of. So we'll be tasting the wines as we go. And those of you who've bought our special Delamotte mixed case this evening will have two half bottles, the Brut NV and the Blanc de Blanc NV, and then the 2012, a full bottle of the 2012 vintage, which we released a few weeks ago. And I hope that many of you will have tasted it. And if not, that's your opportunity this evening. We were very glad to have a few bottles over in the UK, particularly before Brexit, that we would be able to put in these cases tonight. So I am going to hand over to Christian.
Excuse me, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Do you use tonight a half bottle Delamotte tonight?
Oui. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I am in Le Mesnil and I have no half bottle. I have only this bottle. This bottle is the Jeroboam, and the half bottle is quite ridiculous.
Thank you. Yeah. Well.
So sorry. Please, Christian.
Next time we're going to come to Le Mesnil and have a couple of those each, I should have thought, especially as it's Christmas time. But anyway, we shall be kicking off with our little half bottles and enjoying them.
I'm joking, of course.
So first of all, I think we should have a little sip, and then we'll hand over to Christian, who will be giving us a few insights into the history of Champagne Delamotte. Cheers.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Didier. So I'm very honored to be meeting you all today, and I hope we'll be able to meet soon in the same place, maybe in Champagne, at Le Mesnil, or maybe in England. And please, I'd like to tell you a little bit of the story of the house. Maison Delamotte was born during the Siècle des Lumières, this particular golden age of the French art de vivre, in which champagne becomes, I think, one of the most, I could say, sparkling components of this time. François Delamotte, who was owner of a vineyard in Reims, decided to find in 1760 a house with his name dedicated to the champagne trade. Delamotte is the fifth oldest champagne house, and we are actually celebrating this year the 260th anniversary of the house. So this man, François Delamotte, who was born and raised in the Champagne region, of course, it was like full of tradition, but at the same time, he had like a modern approach in the way of creating his family company. And that's important, family company from the beginning. And also with a new way of thinking, the champagne business, of course, because he decided to settle his headquarters in a beautiful property in Reims, putting together in the same house, the cellars and the main office. So then the Delamotte house as a family business is taken over by the eldest son, Alexander, and later in the history of this house, precisely in 1828, by his younger son, Nicolas Louis Delamotte. known under the name of the Chevalier Delamotte. I don't know if you heard about him before, but he was a former Knight of the Order of Malta and a president at that time of the Reims Chamber of Commerce. He made the house to be very well known through Europe, and he was also a ceremony planner, I could say, of one of the royal coronations, the last royal coronations in France, that of one of the Charles X. Which, by the way, inspired the Rossini opera. I don't know if you know the opera Le Voyage à Reims. And so later in time, in the 20th century, the Nonancourt family, gives a second birth to Champagne Delamotte. And this time we are in the new house located, settled in Le Mesnil-sur-Rocher. We still have our offices and our cellar today. And in 1982, Bernard de Nonancourt integrates the Delamotte house to the Laurent Perrier group. And in this same year, he gets the great opportunity to purchase the neighbor house, Champagne Salon, born at the beginning of the century for this house. So since then, the two sister houses are working together in complete synergy and sharing the same passion and know-how about Chardonnay. That's a very important word tonight, because after the Brut that we're gonna taste two beautiful Chardonnay wines, 100% Chardonnay, Blanc de Blanc. So to celebrate this year, this 260th anniversary, very important for us, we want to taste with you our first cuvée, which is the first that we open, that is the Brut cuvée, which is a classic blend in Champagne with the three grape varieties, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. So I let Didier continue presentation of this beautiful cuvée.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Rebecca. So thank you very much for everyone to join this tasting tonight. And it's a great pleasure for me to share my wines with you. Yes, Delamotte is a really family company. I am the 11th generation in this winery, created in 1760, 260 years ago. And it's like a dream. It's like a dream to manage this winery, this brand, because Delamotte is a very simple winery, because we produce only 4 different wines in many houses in Champagne houses. They produce 8, 10, 12, 15, sometimes 20 different cuvées. And for us, we are very focused on only 4 wines. And the first wine tonight is the Delamotte Brut. Delamotte Brut is with this blue label. And Delamotte Brut is a blend with a majority of Chardonnay, because we love Chardonnay. And the majority is around 65% of Chardonnay, 35% of Pinot Noir, and a touch of Pinot Meunier, just a touch, between 5 and 10%. It's really the taste of Champagne. And for many people, Delamotte is the exact representation of the Champagne for the Champenois, for people from Champagne. In Champagne, we love the very straight Champagne, very clean Champagne, with a very low dosage and not too sweet. We don't like demi-sec, for example. We love Brut or sometimes extra Brut, very dry Champagne. And for this cuvée, for the Delamotte Brut, Delamotte Brut is a Brut, of course, and we keep the wine minimum 36 months on the yeast. It's a very long aging for a Brut cuvée, because normally in Champagne, the average age for the Brut Champagne, it's only 15 months. And for Delamotte, it's 36 months. So it's a big difference when you taste the wine, the first access of the wine. You drink something round, not sweet, but round, and clean, very clean. And a very important point for me is the very, very tiny bubbles, very tiny, abundant bubbles, very small bubbles, and it's sort of explosion in your mouth. I love very much the nose of this wine. because of course it's a majority of Chardonnay, and majority of Chardonnay from the Grand Cru. We use Le Mesnil-sur-Oger, Auger, and Avis for Chardonnay, the top villages for Chardonnay from Côte des Blancs. And for the Pinot Noir, we source the grapes from 3 Grand Cru as well, Le Tours-sur-Marne, Bouzy, and Ambonnay. Certainly one of the 3 best villages for Pinot Noir. And of course, a touch of Pinot Meunier, a touch of Pinot Meunier, but there are no Grand Cru for the Pinot Meunier in Champagne. I love this nose. It's a nose of freshness. Of course, with a touch of citrus and grapefruit, but no aggressive, no, it's just wrong, it's just perfect for me. This nose is just incredible. I remember the sentence of my friend Adam Brett-Smith, the president of Cornell & Barrow, because we work with Cornell & Barrow for the last 35 years now. It's a long relationship, long and successful relationship. And I remember a few years ago, Adam talked about this champagne, the Delamotte Brut, and he says, this champagne is the easy champagne, yes, easy champagne to drink for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you continue all the night. And since this time, I believe it's a very good idea to start with champagne for breakfast. And now I'm drinking champagne for breakfast, not every day, of course, but sometimes, some Sunday, and sometimes Saturday as well.
Well, as we all know, Didier, Adam's right in everything. So, you know, I'm sure this is a lesson well learned.
I love the freshness. I love it's very accessible champagne. It's beautiful to drink 1 glass, and after 1 glass, you ask for a second glass, and you ask, and finally the bottle is empty, and you ask for a second bottle. And it's the manner to drink champagne, not just a sip and say, oh yes, interesting, and you put your glass on the table. No, when you drink champagne with 1 glass or 2 glasses, 3 glasses, or sometimes more.
So Didier, could you, I don't know whether we should maybe move straight on to the Blanc de Blanc and compare and contrast the Blanc de Blanc with the Brut NV before perhaps spending a little bit more time on the 2012 vintage. But I think it's quite interesting,
yes, of course,
to compare those 2 wines.
Just maybe Rebecca, before to start with the Blanc de Blanc, and tonight Christian will comment the Blanc de Blanc. And okay. Just for the aperitif, for example, if you drink Delamotte Brut or as well Delamotte Blanc de Blanc for the aperitif, a very simple food to match with the champagne, with Delamotte Brut or Blanc de Blanc, or the radish, the white and red radish, or the black radish. In fact, I believe in England is not black radish, is a horseradish, no, Rebecca?
The radis noir, yes,
oui.
Very spicy.
The horseradish is more spicy, yeah.
It's horseradish, huh?
Yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's not black. No, yes, because
because in France, I think that's another. Yeah, the black one is the one with the black skin, and the horseradish is white.
Yes, that's right, and yes, and that's different. That's Raifort.
And it's like mustard, very, very hot.
Yeah.
Yes, very hot, very hot. But just the red and black radish with champagne, with the Blanc de Blanc or the Brut de la Motte, it's just perfect. It's a perfect pairing. It's very light in terms of calorie, and the matching, the spicy of the radish and the champagne, the matching is just amazing. And please, if you have the opportunity to taste the radish and the champagne, it's really really funny, and you will be really happy with your friend to do this type of matching. So maybe Christian, now you can start with the Blanc de Blanc Delamotte Blanc de Blanc.
You just pour a glass of Blanc de Blanc. And of course, this Delamotte Blanc de Blanc non-vintage is quite of a flagship for Champagne Delamotte. It's, as Didier said before, we work only with 100% Chardonnay grapes coming from 3 Grand Cru villages, which are Le Mesnil, of course, Avize, and Auger. These 3 villages blended together to give this pure and this incredible mineral champagne, which of course it could be like ready when they are young. These wines, they could be like very strong, and they could be like difficult to drink in a way. So this is why we leave this champagne for 48 months in our cellars, lying on the lees, just the wine to be quieter, to be more rounded, to have different flavors, a new palette of flavors, and develop this wine as it has to be. So this is incredible Blanc de Blanc wine that it could be drink, of course, for aperitif, but of course also it's a gastronomy wine. As you know, Blanc de Blanc, it goes very well with all kind of fish, of raw meat or raw fish, sorry, or white meat, or simple things like
oyster.
Excuse me, Didier?
Oyster as well.
Oysters,
beautiful oyster.
Of course, or all these products coming from the sea, of course. That's very interesting with Blanc de Blanc. All these, how you say, iodé? How you say iodized?
Iodine.
Iodine products, tastes that matches perfectly with this kind of wines.
The taste of the sea.
Taste of the sea, yeah, that's perfectly. And so for us, when you think about this chalky champagne, this is one of kind of a chalky and mineral champagne, but very easy to drink in a way, and it's not aggressive in the palate. Always with these small bubbles and this clear and this purity inside.
And very important point again, but I repeat again, but it's important because we use grapes, you use Chardonnay only from Grand Cru, because many Blanc de Blanc on the market are not Grand Cru wines. And for Delamotte, we use only Grand Cru. You know, in Champagne, there are 320 different villages in Champagne, and only 17 villages are Grand Cru, and only 6 in the Côte des Blancs for the Chardonnay. And for Delamotte, we use only Grand Cru. It's the top quality for Chardonnay. And of course, as well, this type of Chardonnay is the most expensive Chardonnay in Champagne. And it's why the quality of Delamotte is a top quality. Of course, Delamotte is not a marketing, is not a bling bling champagne, but all the effort, all the money we put for Delamotte is on the quality. The quality is on the bottle, maybe not on the label, maybe not with a beautiful box, a crazy box, a bling bling box. No, the most important for us is the wine, and the wine to share with you.
And as you may notice, the nose is like fruity, and you have like this citrus and floral nose, which is very expressive in a way, but not aggressive. And then when you taste it, you find all this more like mineral, like chalky, with a floral also taste, but it's very easy to drink. It's not aggressive to the palate. That's important. It's not aggressive at all.
It's very interesting actually, because I do think that there is a perception problem, or perhaps just a knowledge issue around Blanc de Blanc in general. I'm not quite sure that people realize how much more challenging it is to produce a Blanc de Blanc champagne versus a Brut champagne in terms of quality, because you do really, if you've got Chardonnay, as far as I've understood, you do really need to extend that lees aging, that additional time. Otherwise, you would end up with a champagne that's more aggressive, that's less digestible. And what's always struck me about Delamotte in particular, and when I first joined Corning Barrow many moons ago, I didn't know all the backstory. I just recognised as soon as I tasted it that it's very approachable, accessible. It doesn't hit you, like a wall, a wall of acidity, the way that some champagnes unfortunately can, which is no doubt, perhaps a consequence of, this legal minimum 15 months of time on the lees and not being able to soften that acidity. But I'm not sure that the Blanc de Blanc message is particularly well understood here. And perhaps that's because there aren't that many Blanc de Blanc champagnes here or in general around the world. The classic cuvées with the blend are so much more well known.
And it's true that the 48 month also gives at the end on the mouth like a toasty brioche
Yes,
taste you have only with this
exactly
long aging on lees.
Is the maturity of the Chardonnay after a few years, after 5-10 years, we go slowly to the bread, the brioche, the pastry. It's a very delicate aspect of the Chardonnay. And for many people, this wine, the Blanc de Blanc Delamotte, some sommelier and journalists compare this wine with a Morceau from Burgundy. It's of course it's Chardonnay as well, and with the complexity of the Morceau. Now, after a few minutes in my glass, the nose is absolutely beautiful, very clean, very direct, and just perfect. I love to use clean for a wine, because there are so many champagne not very clean, with a taste of wood, taste of oxidation, and for me it's not a champagne. Champagne, we produce champagne to drink champagne, not to taste and put the glass on the table and say, yes, interesting wine, and you put your glass on the table. No, please, champagne, you drink champagne. You drink champagne of course for a cocktail, for aperitif, but you drink champagne for gastronomy with food. And this type of champagne is absolutely perfect for food. And you can of course drink this wine from the aperitif to the cheese with different time, different aspect of the wine following your meal.
And that's very important for the service. It's the temperature and the glass. We normally recommend the tulip glass or simple white wine glass. It's perfect for this kind of wines, and not very cold, like 8 centigrade. It's perfect. Just not very cold, because you wanna lose the nose, and that the nose is very rich. And it's how you start enjoying and experiencing this kind of champagne.
Could I just go in reverse a second? I was thinking of a question that maybe some people might have in this virtual room. This wine has spent 4 years on the lees, and I think it's it's based on the 15 vintage, correct?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's very interesting, because actually you were talking about, this appreciating it as a wine, and I think that's something that I've become very much more aware of, as I've got to know Delamotte a bit more. If I'm thinking to the vintages of white Burgundy, from the 2015 vintage, quite, mellow for a vintage, quite, rich, but actually have turned out to have, a lot more life and acid and brightness than perhaps some people expected, because of the, warmth and so forth. Do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, we're drinking a non-vintage wine, but it's 2015 vintage.
Yes, exactly. Yes, the majority of this wine is 2015, and Yes, but already 5 years for a wine, it's for a champagne is not is already aging for champagne. So yes, it's really special for me because I love the freshness already, but the complexity as well is not only a fresh champagne; it's a complex champagne. I imagine tonight this wine to drink this wine with miso soup. Miso soup is the famous Japanese soup, and generally in Japan they don't drink the soup because it's very liquid. Is why I said drink for this soup. At the beginning of the dinner, it's normally at the end of the dinner, and this type of wine, Delamotte Blanc de Blanc with miso soup at the end of the dinner, it's just amazing. It's just incredible because normally after a long Japanese dinner, you are a little bit tired, and you finish with this soup, this hot soup, and a glass, sometimes 2 glasses of Delamotte Blanc de Blanc, and you can continue the dinner. It's very strange. It's like a true Normand, but it's with Champagne Blanc de Blanc.
It's interesting to hear you say this, Didier, actually. And, you know, we've been in Japan together, haven't we? But, you know, Japan is a really important market for Delamotte as it is for Champagne Salon as well. And, you know, when we were there, the pairing with the food was pretty extraordinary, as I remember.
Yes, honestly, the Japanese food with champagne and particularly for Salon on Delamotte is really the paradise for my wines. Not only, of course, for many people, for the majority of people, Japan is a sushi and sashimi, but sushi and sashimi are just 5% of the complexity, of the richness of the Japanese food. There are so many different food in Japan, following the location in Japan, and as well with the same name for the same food, the origin of the fish, origin of the crab, of the origin of all the seafood, because of course the majority of the food is seafood. Is different from Osaka to Hokkaido to from Kyoto or I don't know where. It's completely different, and the champagne is there to manage and to link all these different food to get together. I remember an incredible pairing with a crab. You know, the big crab with long
tentacles, claws.
Yes, and it was just incredible with a different course, with different cooking of this crab. It was just amazing. The richness of Japanese food is really incredible.
Well, I hope you had a Jeroboam with that enormous crab, Didier. I did.
Yes.
I did notice from a question come up in the chat box during that, and I think it's maybe relevant to mention it now, though we can actually also answer any questions at the end of the session. But somebody asked, why don't we put Grand Cru on the label of the Blanc de Blanc?
We put Delamotte, and Delamotte is much more important than Grand Cru because Delamotte is the signature, is the guarantee of the quality. Because there are so many producers in Champagne, they put Grand Cru on the label, and sometimes they don't use Grand Cru grapes, or they produce regular wine with Grand Cru grapes. So the most important is the signature of the brand, the signature of the house. Nobody asks Chanel for the perfume, for number 5 of Chanel. Nobody asks for the origin of the different flavors of the Chanel perfume. The most important is the number 5 from Chanel, and Chanel is the brand. And for Delamotte, Delamotte is the most important. And for Salon as well. It's very strange because nobody asked for Salon, because Salon is a big and powerful brand. And nobody asked a Grand Cru on Salon, because it's much more important to drink Salon than a Grand Cru wine. So, but for Delamotte, yes, we use only Grand Cru, and Delamotte managed the Grand Cru.
I suppose it's interesting because Delamotte's quite a discreet brand, actually. You know, it's possibly better known in France than in some other markets for all the reasons that you say too, that we've become used to hearing about brands because they've got great big marketing budgets, and you know that's not where you put you put your investment. And so perhaps one of the challenges there is that people haven't necessarily got to know Delamotte with quite the same ubiquity as a Moet or whatever it is. But I guess that's our job.
So and it's maybe the good occasion to talk about the relationship between Salon and Delamotte, Delamotte and Salon, because Salon and Delamotte are the sister houses, and Salon is the young sister of Delamotte, because Delamotte has the creation of Delamotte was in 1760, and Salon is much more younger, because the creation of Delamotte was beginning of last century. And of course, the reputation, Salon is a real star in Champagne, and not only in Champagne. Salon is a part of the three maybe most iconic wines in the world, and because Salon, of course, the story of Salon, the concept of Salon, the philosophy of Salon is very special. Only Chardonnay from Le Ménil, only a vintage. There are only one cuvée for Salon. Yeah, it's not a range. And we keep the wine average time 10 years in the cellar before to release the vintage. It's unique in Champagne, but it's unique in the wine world. And last century for Salon, we produce only 37 vintages in one century. There are no other example, of course, in Champagne, but in the wine world, with a winery, with a chateau, with a domain in Bordeaux, Burgundy, in Spain, in Italy, in Argentina, in US, with a winery with only 37 vintages in one century, with only one cuvée, one wine. So it's why Salon is so special. And of course, if you have chance to taste this wine, it's really an experience, really something special to drink. And maybe you have to drink one time in your life, Salon, because it's really, really special. I don't know, Rebecca, if you agree with me, but please, Rebecca, said something about Salon, because it's really something special.
Do you know, I'm not sure I agree with you, actually, because I'd rather have it more times than one.
Yeah, me too.
I'm in charge of Salon Delamotte now for 24 years. And I'm always surprised and happy. And every Salon bottle I open, it's something special for me. After, of course, many bottles I open and drink, but it's really special. It's an experience. It's like a beautiful trip, a beautiful travel around the world when you taste one glass of Salon, not a bottle, just one glass of Salon. It's something really special. And with Delamotte, the sister house, we try to do something very close. Of course, it's much more accessible. Is maybe the first 2-3 steps before to arrive at Salon.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And there is an almost, it's impossible to define Salon really. And I'm not going to go into it, at the risk of sounding incredibly pretentious, but it's really one of those extraordinary wines, one of those converting wines that sort of really stop you in your tracks, and you just can't really describe the experience. And you know, it's something that we're very lucky in the wine trade to be able to share from time to time.
And we will see with the next Delamotte cuvée, the Blanc de Blanc 2012. I would like to say after that this wine 2012 Delamotte Blanc de Blanc is a perfect wine to drink now, but perfect for the future, with a beautiful potential of aging. And so with Salon, the concept of Salon is the aging. Of course, after 10 years in the cellar, but of course, if you drink the wine will be perfect immediately after the 10 years. But if you have time to keep the wine 20, 30, 40, 50 years in your cellar. And today, when I produce Salon, of course, not every year, only when the vintage is a great vintage, but I produce this wine not for me, not for you, sorry, it's certainly for your children and sometimes for your grandchildren. So you have to imagine the future, and it's very difficult actually to imagine the future. It's sometimes difficult to imagine in next week or in next month. But with Salon, I produce this wine. For example, 2020 will be a great vintage in Champagne, and certainly a Salon vintage. And it's really funny because I know this wine, maybe I will drink this wine in 12 years, I hope so. But I know this wine will be drink in 70 years. Exactly the same. Today, I'm drinking vintage from the 40s or from the 30s. So it's very funny to imagine the future with a bottle of wine, with a bottle of champagne. This morning, I'm working in my office here, and I plan the vintage for the next 10 years. So Rebecca, I know perfectly how many bottles we have to sell for the next 10 years. This morning with my assistant, with Marie-Agnès, we worked together about 2030. So it's very funny. It's really funny to work for the next 10 years. It's very strange.
Given all the roller coaster and the turbulence at the moment, actually, I find that quite reassuring. But you know, it is mind-blowing what you plan for in your industry. Also, you know, the aging time and all the rest of it. But I'm very aware of time. I actually sneaked a sip of the 2012 while you were talking.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Not at all, but please, everybody.
So, 2012, both. I'm crazy for this vintage. I'm crazy for this wine. So this wine is the gold label. The gold label. So it's a blend of Chardonnay, only Chardonnay, Blanc de Blanc, only Chardonnay, but Chardonnay from the six Grand Cru villages in Champagne. So it's Le Mesnil-sur-Oger, Auger, Avize, Cramant, Chouilly, and Oiry. The top quality in Champagne, and we are the only winery in Champagne to produce this type of wine with a blend of 6 Grand Cru together. So we keep the wine minimum 7 years on the yeast, the dosage before the disgorgement, and the dosage is a very, very low dosage. It's just a touch of sugar at the end of the process. And the nose is just amazing for me. The complexity of the nose is just incredible. For this type of wine, honestly, I love to drink this wine with food. The pairing, there are so many possibilities. Some wineries in Champagne ask to the customer to drink this type of wine with potatoes from blah, blah, blah. or blah, blah, blah. No, please, you are free to drink this wine with fish, with radish if you want, with I don't know, completely open. For me tonight, I choose Comté cheese with this wine. I love very much cheese with champagne. I love very much Parmigiano as well with champagne, and with Comté. Comté is a French cheese, but I love very much the pairing, the sweetness of the Comté. I love this type of texture in the mouth, and the nose of this wine is just amazing for me. The complexity with a lot of flowers, still with flowers like jasmine, honeysuckles, it's orange flowers, but with a touch of green aspect. For me, green is like a mint. Mint is still very present in my nose, and mint means very fresh, very young wine, still very young after 8 years because it's 12.
Didier, it was interesting. This came up in a press tasting we did last week. You know, from the 2008 vintage, which was the last release before 2012, you had made the decision to move to including these additional villages. It might be interesting for everyone here to hear about that and your decision-making process, which, you know, had a lot of foresight, maybe about climate change. I'm not sure.
No, in fact, this process before 2008, all the Delamotte vintage were with 4 different villages, 4 different Blanc de Blanc village for the blend of Delamotte. And we start the process more than 15 years ago with Alain Terrier, the former oenologist, Salon and Delamotte oenologist. And I asked to Alain to produce this Blanc de Blanc vintage with a maximum of Grand Cru Blanc de Blanc. And my expectation was not 4, but 5 different Grand Cru. And Alain Terrier came one morning, long time ago now, 15 years ago, and he said, Didier, you know, now I'm ready to produce Blanc de Blanc vintage, if you still agree, with the 6 Grand Cru from Côte des Blancs. I said, of course, it's an incredible news for me. And yes, he said, yes, it was not easy to source and to find the right parcels, the right grapes in Chouilly and Ouari, because Chouilly and Ouari are the 2 last villages for us. But now I'm ready, and I have now an agreement with the producer, and we can start to produce a wine, a Blanc de Blanc vintage with the 6 Grand Cru. So, and we start with the 2008. 2008, Delamotte Blanc de Blanc is the first vintage with the 6 Grand Cru blended together. And unfortunately for us, 2009, 2010, 2012 are not vintage for Delamotte, not vintage for Salon, but not vintage for Delamotte, because the quality was not perfect. And of course, when it's not perfect, we don't produce. It's very simple. It's a very heavy decision, but it's simple for us. And after 2008 is the vintage 2012, the new vintage just released now on the UK market with Cornell Barrow.
Didier, what's the next vintage you're going to release? I'm not sure we've had this conversation. Since you're planning 30 years ahead, I probably need to know.
2014. 2014, yes. With this wine tonight, you know what? I would like to eat a chicken demi-deuil. Demi-deuil, you know, it's a chicken with truffle, the black truffle under the skin of the chicken. So, and you cook the chicken very slowly, and you drink this wine with truffle on chicken. It's just incredible, just amazing.
That sounds
really,
quite like the sort of dish. I love the poetic nature of that, the demi-deuil. I mean, even though it's a little bit sort of, you know, sad, etc., you know, half mourning or something, but I love the concept of it. But it sounds like the sort of dish where you might choose a white Burgundy, a Meursault, a Chassagne Montrachet, or something that would be, you know, which would have that sort of, you know, complexity, and yet you're saying that this vintage champagne will be a brilliant match.
Yep, it's of course with cheese, but with the chicken, the chicken demi-deuil, poulard de demi-deuil. It's just incredible. It's incredible. Just with mushroom, with white mushroom, with a chanterelle or pied de mouton. I don't know the
Black mushrooms.
The translation.
Well, it ought to be
mouton,
feet, but I'm not sure that sounds great.
Yes, just the white mushroom with this type of wine is just.
It's interesting though, because for you, champagne is a wine that can go from you know, breakfast to, you know, pumpkin hour, you know, midnight. It can go you know, can
yes,
accompany.
I'm drinking champagne with croissant, with cheese, with poulard, with lobster, with scallops. So it's quite difficult for me because it's my problem. I'm drinking only champagne.
But all the day and also throughout the meal. Whereas I think, you know, traditionally in the UK, and I don't know about other markets, but in the UK we tend to you know, almost pigeonhole champagne as an aperitif, you know, drink, a celebration, a glass, you know, before we move on to, you know, in inverted commas, sort of in serious wine, or in, you know, a wine that's been specifically matched to dinner. Whereas actually, given the acidity of Delamotte and the, you know, the aging and the fact that actually it does work so well with food, you know, perhaps we ought to have a bit more of an open mind on it. And I'm well aware that we've exceeded our time limit. I'd like to wrap up and thank you, Didier and Christian, for hosting us this evening, and to Colette too for organising everything. And all I can say is I hope that we will see each other again next year, when we will be drinking our own body weight in Delamotte Blanc de Blanc, or if not Salon. And I think we should all cheer that.